What's up guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're gonna go over this new effect. This is how the effect looks. If you guys want more videos like these, make sure you guys click subscribe down below. And once you're ready, let's jump right into After Effects. Alright, so I'm gonna use this clip right here. So the first thing that we want to do is isolate our subject from the background. So what you want to do is highlight your clip and press Ctrl D. This will duplicate your clip. Now what you want to do is double click on the top one and rotoscope out your subject frame by frame. If you don't know how to rotoscope, the basics are you just left click to select something and then hold Alt to remove something. You can also change the brush size by holding Alt. So I'm just going to change my composition FPS real quick. There we go. Now you want to go frame by frame and rotoscope out your subject. Once you're done rotoscoping frame by frame, what you want to do is click the freeze button right here to lock your roto brush into place. Now what you want to do is go back to your composition and hide your bottom layer. Now you want to play around with the feathering and the shift edge to make your roto brush not look as rough. You can also click the decontaminate edge colors and then use motion blur. So I changed my feather up to about 8 and then mess with the shift edge a tiny bit. So what I want to do now is duplicate our bottom layer once again, because this is going to be useful for the end of this effect. What you want to do now, make sure that the middle layer is visible, and then what you want to do is go to your effects and search for emboss glass effect and then add this to your middle layer. What you want to do is mess around with the bumps scale. I'm going to turn mine to about 6 and then turn up the bumps smooth. Mine is going to be at about 200. You can deselect this subpixel smooth. And now what I like to do is keyframe the brightness at the beginning. I'm going to have mine start at about 1.7 and then go up a tiny bit. So let's say to about 2.3 after about, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frames about there. So you can see that the brightness changes a little bit. What you want to do now is add some turbulent displace. I'm going to decrease the size a lot. So I'm going to have mine at about 9. And then keyframe the amount at the beginning. I'm going to have it start at about 30 and then go towards the end of the clip and then turn it up. I'm going to have mine up at about 600, but you can have yours as how you want. So 650 around there should be good. Now what you want to do is add some distort chroma and drag that to your layer. I'm going to turn my amount down a lot to about 0.3 and then turn the blur lens up quite a bit. I'm going to have mine at about, let's say, 70. Then change the rotate warp direction as you want. I'm going to have mine at about 65. Now this is quite an important step. What you want to do is mess with the warp blue. I'm going to turn mine to about 5.3-ish. And this part is also quite important. What you want to do is mess around with the 3 colors right here. You want to match the colors to the scene. So I'm going to click the first color and make this one a little bit more purple to match the scene. I'm going to have it a little bit darker actually. And then I'm going to mess around with the green shading a little bit. So around here is probably fine. And now I'm going to make this one more pink. This is quite an important color in our scene. I'm going to have this one quite light so we have a lot more contrast. So this looks fine with the colors. I'm going to mess with the amount rel X and Y. I'm going to turn this one quite a bit. This is going to make it more trippy. I'm going to make this to about 1.5 and then change this to about, you want this one quite high. This is going to be the majority of the liquid effect. So mine's going to be at about 8. And now you can turn the blur matte just a tiny bit up to about 30. And I realized that there's quite a bit of black leaking in right here, which we don't want. So I'm gonna go back to my emboss glass and just change the values here a bit so we fill the blacks out. So now this looks fine. You might not have this problem, but my clip had that. Now what you want to do is add some wave warp. Just go to your effects and search wave warp and drag that to your middle layer. This is how it's gonna look. So you have to mess around with the height and width. I'm gonna turn my height down to about, let's say, 6 or 5. I have mine at 6. And then turn the width up quite a bit. I'm gonna have mine at about 90. This is just gonna make it look a little bit more wavy. And now this is an optional step, but the reason why we duplicated our background is because I wanted to add a luma key and on this middle layer and then turn it up a tiny bit. So we have a little bit of the background leaking in, and then you can enable the bottom layer to see how this looks. You don't have to do this though, just optional. So I want my effect to blend a little bit more in with the background. So I'm gonna turn the opacity down a little bit and then set my blending mode to screen and then enable the bottom layer. I'm actually gonna add some blur to my effect so that it blends a little bit better, because it stands out a little bit too much right now. So I'm gonna add some Gaussian blur to this and just turn it up to about, let's say 10 or 11. That looks fine. So this is how our effect looks so far. Obviously, you guys can mess around with the distort chroma and the emboss glass. This is the most important effect to achieve this kind of look. So you can just mess with the bump scale on the glass, and you can also mess around with the mount and the blur lens on the distort chroma. So you can see you have more bubbles or less bubbles, and it's going to change a lot depending on what values you choose. If you want to take this a step further, you can duplicate your roto brush, which is the top one right here, twice. I'm going to have 2 clones sticking out at the end of the clip. So this is the top one. I'm going to rename this to top head so we know what each layer does. I'm going to have it start right here on towards the end of the clip, so about 30 frames in. And then you have to scale it down a bit. Just hide the top one for a second to see what we're working with, and also change the rotation because I want it to pop out from each of his shoulders, and just move it to a position here so it matches. We're gonna keyframe the position later. So this looks fine so far. I'm gonna do the same thing with the second one. Just downscale it a bit and then move the position and the rotation to match his shoulders. I'm gonna change the scale to the same as the first one, which was 84, but you can also have different scales for this if you want. So now we can enable our top layer. So we have to make sure that it isn't visible towards the start of the clip. So just tuck this in a little bit more. Just hide this one and then tuck these in. So now you can see that they're not visible when we have the top one selected. And now what we can do is go to about 30 frames in my example, and then keyframe the position on both of these, and then go towards the end. And now you can drag these up to make the keyframe, and do the same with the other shoulder. So now you can see that these two are going to be popping up. I'm going to have this start a little bit earlier, so about 2 frames earlier, so you can see the effect last a little bit. And it's happening a little bit too slowly. I'm going to move this in a little bit more. So that looks pretty cool. I'm gonna change the left one a little bit like this. So this looks fine. I'm actually gonna ease these keyframes to make it look a little bit more smooth like that. Alright, and now we're pretty much done. Remember that you can change the values as you want to get the effect that you like. There's a lot of ways to do this, but this is my method of doing it. There's obviously many other ways to get this kind of effect. So this is our final result. Thank you guys for watching. If you want more videos like these, make sure to hit the subscribe button below, and also check out my Instagram. Maybe check a follow over there, and I'll see you guys in another video.